Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
I hope you have read newspapers. Right. So this is a cutoff that UPSC has announced for 2020. Yes. So there are multiple theories. The most important thing being mains cutoff is around 736. So this number keeps on changing each and every year. Sometimes it's closer to 770, sometimes it's closer to 690. This number keeps on fluctuating. So does our effort actually change? Nobody actually knows how much score he or she is going to get. Everybody will write for a fantastic effort only. This year, the second ranker score for essay is around 132. Okay. In normal year, probably she would have got 150. In different year, she would have got 145. That means this is average score of that particular year for rankers, right? So her writing skill has nothing to do with these scores because it changes, the average changes from year to year. If you see last year ethics scores, 120 was average. If you know that 2019 mains scores, 120 was average. This year the scores in essay ethics paper are 90 is average. So the same student last year would have got 120. So what I'm trying to tell you is marks or cutoff is just something that we think that we should target, but whatever you should target is the ideal scores. 150 in essay, 100 in all the GS papers, 300 in your optional. This do not or will never change. 150 in essay, 100 in your 4 GS papers and 300 in your optional. This will not change, but depending on the year like which you are going to write or when you go to interview hall, the averages will change. Probably 130, 90, 260. This will be the new average. Your effort is same, but the marks you will be given is this instead of this, right? So your effort is same. Your 130 is different, might get you 150 in a different year. So don't think that last year topper is scoring less than this year topper and all such things. The effort is more or less 100% same. The competition only increases. People get smarter every year. Yes or no? Right. So that's the most important thing I wanted to discuss, because you should not have a false illusions on like what I should do, what I should not be doing. The basics won't change. Yes or no? 2020 or any format, the game is same, right? So this is an article from Indian Express on 27th of this month. So I'm sure most of you have not read Indian Express. Yes. The concept here is social justice and GS paper 2 differently abled. So why social justice GS paper 2? What are the topics? Differently abled people have a lot of inhibitions. Differently abled people have a lot of problems. What she is trying to tell you is due to lockdowns, due to COVID, online education and online employment opportunities have increased. This should be a golden opportunity for the world to focus on the differently abled people. I cannot probably create an infrastructure. Let's say normally this fact, 90% of disabled children in developing countries do not go to school. Okay, that's a huge amount of number. For the rest of their life, they will be falling behind the crowd as normalcy. So probably by investing in technologies like speech recognition, Braille keyboard, yes, language interpretations, videos with subtitles. So there are multiple ways to empower the differently abled. If we invest in them through technology, not only that they will get educated, they will also get employment opportunities. Yes. So the physical barriers which limit the differently abled people may not exist in online world. Let's say a receptionist, not stereotyping, but probably a receptionist, a call center assistant, or someone who can do just voiceover, right? That kind of people do not need to move out of their homes. By staying inside their home, they will be better empowered. But even teaching, right? They can develop new skills, they can teach, they can learn, they will make more amount of their contribution to the society will be more rather than making money. So what she is trying to tell you is this opportunity should be picked up by the world to invest in the differently abled section of the society, because they are also human capital, they are also social capital. The more we invest in them using technology, the better. Yes. Right to life with dignity. So if we invest in if we invest in differently abled, we are also upholding the fundamental rights, right to life with dignity. Yes, very simple argument, right? And pretty logical in a way. But the most important factor is access to technology. Differently abled people normally are ostracized by their own families. Yes, or probably if they belong to the poorer section of the society, nobody is willing to invest in them. Why will someone buy a smartphone for a differently abled person? Yes or no? If he's from a poor family, if he goes and asks someone, I need to buy a cell phone, do you actually invest in him? Society does not work in the same fashion. So civil society organizations come into the picture here. They can identify the differently abled and they can invest. Yes. Right. There is one more article, interesting article in Indian Express. This is known as grain diplomacy. So whenever you add a term in front of diplomacy, that becomes a diplomacy. Grain diplomacy, panda diplomacy, climate diplomacy, panda diplomacy. Which country? China and so many countries. China gives panda every time. China gives panda to that particular country for their zoos or something. So it is called as panda diplomacy. So it shows very close nature of friendship with China. So China thinks pandas are exclusive to them. It's very privileged friendship. So India never had the opportunity of receiving pandas. Okay. So here what he's trying to talk about is food grains and soft power. All of you know PL 480? What is PL 480? Public Law 480. Where did you read? You read it in newspapers, you think. Okay. How many of you know what is PL 480? Yes.
So at the time of Indira Gandhi, when we used to import grains from US, but like a person from US disrespected India.
Exactly. But where did you read it? I only told. Okay. So PL 480 is India borrowing food grain from USA. That is the root cause of our green revolution. So green revolution started because India was dependent on foreign countries for food grains shipped to mouth. That was the position of India back then. Shipped to mouth, we were heavily dependent. Later we invested in green revolution. Because of green revolution, what happened? India have surplus food grains. To what extent? Last year, in spite of giving away 100 metric tons of food grains, Indian buffers is also still about 90%. 90 million metric tons are there with India. So the amount of food grains that is lying there idly in Food Corporation of India godowns is too high. Right? Say for example, I need 100 kgs of rice. We have, let's say, 290 kgs of rice. What is the extra 190 doing? Nothing. Let's say I want to use 100 kgs. Why 100 kgs is needed? National Food Security Act, midday meal scheme, disaster management, floods, right? In so many cases, I might need to distribute the food. So I will store 100 kgs of food grains. Buffer, chalo, 30 more kgs, extraordinary circumstances. 130 is more than enough for me, but I'm still holding more than 200 kgs. So what am I doing with the extra food grains? Nothing. So this article is saying, why not distribute the same for Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, and so many countries in the world, which will not only solve their problems, at the same time, it will bring soft power to India. And there is also economic reason, not altruistic reason. By holding that, let's say, extra 70 kgs, for every ton, I have to spend some thousands of rupees to maintenance. I have to protect it from rats, getting destroyed, gunny bags, maintenance, labor charges. So this article says around 5,800 or 5,600 rupees is needed per one extra ton to maintenance. So why not offload it and
Save money.
Save money, and at the same time, advantage is grain diplomacy. You will make friends with Sri Lanka and Afghanistan. Yes, right. Clear? So this is known as grain diplomacy. So you can use the term in your GS paper 2 or in your PSIR also. So there are so many types of diplomacies. Right. A fantastic article by Ashok Gulati. So he is the leading expert in agriculture in the newspapers. You see, that is the most common name you hear, not the MSP route. So the first and foremost understanding we need to have is, what is farmer's income? What is farmer's income? Whatever the money that a farmer is getting through agriculture and allied activity is known as farmer's income. So we have discussed this briefly. 6,426 rupees is the average income of the farmers, right? Okay, according to recent surveys, the amount is kind of increasing, right? So in NABARD conducted a survey in 2015 and 16, it is saying the average monthly income of a farmer is 8,931. Yes, 8,931 rupees. So it is better than 6,400 rupees. It is increasing. So why these amounts are very important? Because Prime Minister announced that we will double the farmers' income. So if we take this, we have to take it to 18,000. Yes or no? If we take this, we have to increase it to 13,000. Yes or no? So the gap is huge. 5,000 rupees average income for all the farmers in the country. Whichever number you take, it's a very huge task. Okay, so the technical details aside, according to various reports, incomes of farmers is either 9,000 rupees or 6,500 rupees, but it is improving slowly. Now, then he argues, as he rightly argues, the agricultural GDP of different states vary differently. Punjab has highest amount of irrigation. Whereas Maharashtra has least amount of irrigation. So the farmer's income will be obviously varying, right? So why is this important for UPSC?
Agriculture is there, however.
You both, do you carry syllabus copies right now? You are not carrying? Open it. Tell me, where is the agriculture? Is he studying till night 2 or 3 a.m. in the class? He. He's sleeping properly in the hostel, right?
Yes, sir.
Is there any disturbance in the hostel?
Yes, sir.
Sure. What about your syllabus copy?
No problem.
You have common copy. You are going to share hall ticket also. Then how long are you preparing UPSC from? Both of you? Yes. Sorry?
September.
September. Almost 29 days are over. We are struggling hard to find what is mentioned in syllabus copy. I didn't tell you like to follow syllabus copy. Did I tell you? Yes. Then where is agriculture? It must be in GS paper. Yes, according to him, he is also correct because in the
Paper
syllabus
four.
it is
Essay one
mentioned
is-
as paper 4, but in normal parlance we use it as GS paper 3. So, but normally we call it as GS paper 3 Indian economy, right? In agriculture. So, how are you going to see that? What is mentioned in agriculture?
Different types of irrigation
Oh.
and irrigation
Cropping
system
pattern of
storage.
various parts of country.
What is mentioned?
Cropping patterns of various parts of country.
Cropping patterns of various parts of the country. So, will cropping pattern affect the farmer's income?
Yes, sir.
How?
Government are providing subsidies mainly on
Hmm.
speed and all.
Hmm.
Recently, they have
Hmm.
distributed more subsidies to pulses also.
Hmm.
So the amount which farmers spend for the cultivation will be reduced if the subsidies are getting from government.
Okay.
So if they follow the mixed cropping system, the income will be different for different crops.
Okay. So Maharashtra is a state which is having only 19% of irrigation. Which state produces more amount of sugarcane in the country? Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh produces more amount of sugarcane than any other state, followed by Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, other state. So what is the logic there? Maharashtra is a dry state. It's a rain-fed state. Yes or no? Maharashtra is 80% dependent on rains. Sugarcane is a water intensive crop. It needs tons and tons of water. So the most commonsensical thing to understand here is the farmer's income is totally dependent on the monsoon support, or whatever limited amount of water is being saved by Maharashtra is being used for
Irrigation.
sugarcane, which is not a proper area. So what is the solution? Grow for alternative cropping pattern.
Patterns.
Then we can increase the farmer's income in the long run. Yes, and Maharashtra has the highest number of dams in any state in the country. Still, it is not properly having irrigation. There are a lot of problems. Yes. So, what is the summary he is trying to tell you? As long as irrigation is not reaching every corner of the society, there will be different kinds of problems to achieve doubling the farmer's income. Which committee report suggested doubling the farmer's income?
No, but some. It is there in the first para. Ashok.
Ashok Dalwai Committee. Who is he? Cabinet Secretary. Cabinet Secretary Ashok Dalwai Committee recommends doubling farmers' income. What are the steps needed to be taken? Right? And unless and until you know what is there in the syllabus, how will you appreciate that particular article? You will come here, yarn or sleep. Tomorrow onwards, I will get 2 pillows. One for Santosh, the other one for our friends. Yes or no? I will order them today from Amazon. Don't worry. Right. Next. contrary to popular belief, agriculture is not the primary source of income for farmers. As you can see here in this particular article, income from rearing animals has gone up. So if you take 100 rupees made by farmer, X amount of money is made by farming, Y amount of money is made from animal rearing, then Z is made by
Dairy.
wages. So he is no longer solely dependent on agriculture, and his family cannot survive only on agriculture. So that clearly should explain to us a lot of contradictions in the society. 40% of his income is made from wages and salaries. So if tomorrow government of India decided to abolish MGNREGA, rural economy will collapse. Why? Out of the 10,000 rupees, out of the 9,000 rupees or 6,000 rupees he is making, half of it, nearly half of it is coming from wages and salaries. Yes or no? So if I increase the NREGA wages, indirectly I am doubling the farmer's income.
But that is not true.
But in numbers wise, it is correct, right? If I increase the wages of the farmers, I am doubling the farmer's income. Right. So the simple argument he is trying to bring is there is no MSP in animal husbandry. Still, animal husbandry is doing fantastically because it's purely market driven. Okay. So the heavy dependency of farmers only on MSP should go away. They should have some alternative source of income. So this point can be directly written in your mains answers. So the next logical question is, how are the three farmers bills going to achieve this? The best way to invest is to incentivize private sector to build efficient value chains based on cluster approach. What is cluster approach, Santosh? Maruti? Anu here?
Collection of all the, for example, in dairy, in the cluster approach, we collect from all the small households, smaller enterprises of animal husbandry. So similarly, even for vegetable markets in every area is similar.
Okay, so cluster approach is cluster. Cluster means a lot of people or lot of things in one particular area. Yes or no? Clustered. So cluster means bringing a lot of things into one place. So 25 villages will be called as one cluster, or 25 acres will be one cluster. But when we talk about cluster, we are talking about 200 villages or 300 villages. When 200 or 300 villages come into one place, the private sector will have some interest to invest because thousands of acres are going to come under cluster, and it will be easy for economies of scale. So if Ambani wants to buy, let's say, tomatoes, okay, he wants to buy in 1,000 kgs, right? 1,000 kgs is less. Let's say in tons, 1,000 tons or something like that. So what happens? Hundreds of acres of tomatoes will be produced. Economies of scale will be there. The similar fertilizers, seeds, pesticides, everything can be distributed in this particular 200, 300 villages. That entire area is producing tomatoes, which is very good according to the science. It's good for tomato production. Nagpur, rain-fed areas are very good for horticulture. Nagpur on oranges, right? Onions or oranges? Oranges. So horticulture, these areas are very good for horticulture. So like that, depending on the climatic conditions and the best optimum output, the companies will invest, and that has to happen on their own. How is the farmers bill going to help here? Farmers producers organization is one solution. Clear? So whenever you read a particular article, you link it to the syllabus copy, then you will understand it better. What other keywords are there in syllabus copy that will link to this topic?
Agricultural market, marketing.
Agricultural marketing
Marketing.
reforms. So farm to gate can be brought here. When there is a cluster, the company will sell the tractors rather than you have to sell to the company. Yes. Then economies of animal rearing. Good. Sorry. Food processing and related industries. Okay. So if there is a clustered approach, probably companies will be interested to set up shop nearby only. Okay.
So in the cluster approach,
Yes. You cluster, see 25 people or 25 villages, everything is cluster, right? Then what else can be linked? Sorry. Economies of animal rearing.
But can we do transport and marketing?
Definitely, because farm to gate will happen.
They will come and they will
By everything they will take. So contract farming can also be promoted. So almost all the lines in the agriculture syllabus can be linked to this particular article. He is touching all the important areas, right? He is telling what is happening to the farmers' income, what are the problems of farmers' income, and what should be done. Between 3 paragraphs, he is covering your entire syllabus indirectly or directly. All you have to do is apply it. Yes or no? So if the question comes like what are the steps needed to double the farmer's income? First of all, you need to know what is farmer's income, how much amount of money is being made by direct agriculture. So if someone comes and shouts, MSP, give more MSP, give more MSP, you can tell them only 60% of the farmer's income is from agricultural produce. The rest is from wages. Within that, again, 5% is coming from animal husbandry. So technically 35 to 40% of core income is from agriculture, right? So that clearly diffuses all the tensions. Then you can say why diversification is very important, why horticulture should be encouraged, why animal husbandry should be encouraged, why cooperative society should be encouraged. Then cluster approach. While he is giving up his land for the big companies for contract farming, he can also invest in skill development because we don't want to feed all these people in agriculture, right? Yes or no? We have to take them away from agriculture and invest them in industry sector. Clear?
Sir, any example of incentivizing, sir?
In
Like
which sense?
he's asking, he's suggesting incentivizing private
sector.
what exactly translates to on ground? Incentivizing means
Modifying the APMC Act. Removing the stock limit on essential commodities act, right? Encouraging you to sell outside the APMCs.
okay.
So
Basically,
policy changes. All policy changes
favorable to private.
favorable to private sector.
Even the product linked incentive scheme that was discussed in textiles recently. Even that product linked incentives, in the sense there will be a relaxation in policy, or there will be relaxation in policy related to that specific product, isn't it?
Product linked incentive is you can come and set up shop in India. If you are producing X number of goods as targeted, on that we will give you discount on taxes or some amount of cashback will be given to you. Right? If Apple comes and set up shops in India, if Apple produces 10,000 cell phones, okay, government will give some tax rebates, some benefits to you or some cashback to you, so that in reality you have produced 10,000 phones, but you will get money for 10,500 phones or something. So that 500 phones is bonus. I'm just simplifying it.
Yes, sir.
So that is an incentive for the company. But what happened to India? Manufacturing hub has been created.
Emerged.
See, the simple approach is cluster approach. Let's say you want to create a cell phone. What are the products we need?
Semiconductors, camera, so many.
Basic charger, cover, sorry, motherboards, okay, conductors, right, wires, batteries, very good. Then glass, hardware, yes or no, case, even glass is Gorilla Glass, right? So there is a good amount of investment needs to be done. What China has actually done is, first they started with the chargers, then they started with the cell phone covers. Yes or no? They started exporting one product to different countries. So Samsung used to buy screen panels. Then Apple used to purchase chips, charging chips, something like this. So one day they realized we are creating around 50 to 60 products needed for a cell phone in one particular area. Yes or no? So if I set up shop here only, I can get all these products very cheaply. And everybody is an expert in their field. One person is very good in creating batteries. So I will give him the contract of batteries, but I will set certain standards. You need to have this much amount of standard. So in this way, by creating everything individually, then we created companies. OnePlus, Huawei, MI. So which one is easy? Setting up one company and creating all these products, or setting up company where all these products are there? Setting up company where all these products exist is much cheaper and easier. So product linked incentive scheme is also trying to create the boost, because probably we cannot create X, Y, Z, all these subparts individually right now. So we are giving the push to set up the main factory itself. Okay, you set up the main factory itself. Slowly you will get incentives, because you are creating factory. Sub industries will also be
benefited,
developed or
yes,
invented. Indian startups might start a new glass manufacturing company. Right?
semiconductor.
Anything can happen. So our push is here. Clear? That's what Atmanirbhar Bharat, our product linked incentive scheme, is trying to do to achieve the economies of scale in the long run. Yes or no? If I ask you only to create, let's say, a semiconductor, you may or may not invest in India, but I'm forcing you to sell entire product in India, then you're bringing the technology anyhow. Clear? So this name, Pratap Bhanu Mehta, he is considered as the foremost intellectual in India. I mean, if you take any list of intellectuals in the country, one of the first names you should hear is Pratap Bhanu Mehta. He's a political science teacher, professor actually, right? He used to teach in Ashoka University, and his knowledge is unparalleled in many fields. Now he wrote an article about Quad. He's basically criticizing the Quad, and we will see how rational his criticism is. What is the common theme running among all the Quad countries? Australia was not so interested. China was also not, sorry, India was not interested until Galwan, right? But common theme among the nations.
Indo-Pacific, free trade.
The first and obvious difference between any country and the China is democracy. So we want to beat China with one thing that it doesn't have, that is democracy. China is a communist nation. China is a dictator. India is a democracy. And the rest of the shared values are climate change. Yes. You can take any other values: climate change, free and open trade, development, vaccine Maitri, so on and so forth. So what Mr. Pratap Bhanu Mehta is trying to tell you is, Quad was created accidentally. Nobody actually planned to create Quad. Why? All of us know 2004 tsunami happened. Automatically, Indian Navy, Australian Navy, all these navies came together and helped each other. Then somebody thought of an idea, why not do it every year? So Quad was created. India was hesitant to join Quad because they don't want to offend China. Australia was in the same boat, but slowly Australia's attitude changed. India's attitude also changed because of Galwan incident. As far as this is the story. Now, the most important thing is, we should have unity among our own selves. Let's say if we want to blame China in the name of democracy, each and every Quad member should also uphold democracy. Yes or no? People who live in glass houses cannot throw stones at others. So if India wants to blame China in the name of democracy, India should uphold the democratic principles. So should USA. Black lives matter. In the name of democracy, you are killing blacks or you are suppressing minorities. Then what kind of democracy is that? China will one day blame you. So if you sort out your own house, automatically you are taking ammunition from China's criticism. So that is one perspective that he is trying to bring, crisis of democracy, right? Next. Definitely Quad is not a security alliance. We don't want to call it as a security alliance because China will not take it lying down. So what should be done? We should have a crystal clear understanding on how or what security needs each other countries have. Let's say India eastern coast is covered, this part is covered, but India has a security threat here.
Pakistan.
Yes or no? Probably terrorists from Pakistan or Afghanistan or some drugs might come. But Quad is not interested in this area. Quad is only interested in this area and this area. So each and every nation has its own security needs, right? That should also be brought into the forefront. That is what Pratap Bhanu Mehta is trying to discuss.
What happens if they bring flood?
What automatically India's security will be enhanced, right? And second thing, Joe Biden was evacuating American soldiers from Afghanistan. India knew it's an internal security threat to India, but did America listen to India's concerns? No, they did what they wanted to do. They did not take their close partner India into consideration. But they are saying that, now that our focus on Afghanistan is taken away, we will invest in Indo-Pacific. You are solving one problem, but you are also creating one headache. So that is not the right way that America should do things. So that he is criticizing that we should have internal unity in relation to each other's security concerns. What is done by America will be a problem for India. And the land issue is not being solved. Right? India and China's land issue is not being solved. So if we go too closer to China, we are going to increase our land problems. Sorry, if India and USA come closer, China will put more pressure on the land issue. Right? At the same time, if we ignore the land issue, by focusing too much on the land issue, we might dilute the maritime issue. So both should not be done. And the last one is critical technology and supply chain. Right. What is the threat here? Make in India, make America great again, make in China. So every country wants to collaborate on the global scale, but every country wants to be protectionist at the same time. Both of them cannot work hand in hand. If you want to grow as a superpower, Atmanirbhar Bharat is true, correct, but it cannot be a protectionist policy. We have to be willing to access the technology from USA and other developed countries. So we should interact more. Right. Next, but one common area that we have gone is climate change. If you think about it, America and China are on the same page in relation to climate change. Yes. They both have already declared net zero targets. India has not declared net zero targets. On the other hand, America is willing to give us both technology and money. Recently, John Kerry came into India and he promised both the technology and money to India. So on climate change, we are working in, but is it actually converting into something concrete? Only time will tell. So I hope you understood the 3 C's, right? One is climate, COVID, and critical technologies. COVID here is democracy or the delay in access of technologies, right? Climate change, we are working. Critical technologies, we are working. So if the Quad has to survive, it is a very important political signal which should not be hindered by our own institutional issues. Clear? See, it's a very simple argument. We are friends with USA, China, Japan and Australia, but there are some structural flaws. Those flaws should be sorted out within ourselves so that Quad will survive for a long amount of time. So I told you yesterday also, peacetime. During peacetime, India should make most out of it. The more we make out of it, the better for India. If India is not growing as economy, what will happen?
When crisis comes, nobody will.
Exactly. When crisis comes, nobody will support us. So all these theories are as good as our economy. The best example is Russia. Who is the best friend of Russia now? Who is the only country that is supporting Russia?
When I see we saw the
Everywhere you can see there is only one friend, that is China. Russia and China are like the two sides of the page, right? Here is Russia, here is China. They have a huge amount of boundary to share, and they have also communist ideology within themselves. If let's say Russia was an island like Australia, do you think China would be friends with Russia?
Not really.
No. So here China has to gain more by being friends with Russia rather than the other way around. Okay, and Russia do not have any other friends but China. So why am I giving you this example? Russian economy is almost around $1.9 trillion. Once superpower is now reduced to just a $2 trillion economy, and that is also going to go down. If every country starts developing its own weapons, will anybody buy from Russia? No. Then Russian economy will collapse. If everybody is moving towards renewable energy, will anybody import oil from Russia? No. So Russian economy is set to fall down. Nobody will be friends with Russia. The only reason why India and Russia are friends, India is the second largest weapons buyer in the world. Russia is one of the largest exporter of the weapons in the world. The moment India say, I don't need your weapons, I am going to buy from France and USA, do you think still Russia will be our friend? As simple as that, right? The same fate should not fall on India. The more we grow as an economy, $3 trillion economy to 5 to 10, what will happen? We will have more friends. Soft power plus money is equal to best friends. Yes or no? We have good name and good money. There is no other country like India. Yes or no? But if we are good but we don't have money, then everybody is like hi bye. Everybody is friend but still not in your crisis. So during crisis we need real friends that is purchased through money. Clear? So in peacetime, invest in critical technologies, supply chain, Atmanirbhar Bharat, product linked incentive scheme, pharmaceuticals, whatever you want to do, you do. Right. The new outer space order. Actually, this article is okay, but there is even better article by Syed Akbaruddin in Hindu few months ago. It was a fantastic article by Syed Akbaruddin. If I find it, I will share it with you. So the simple concept is outer space is the new frontier to be conquered. Land, air, water, cyberspace. Land, air, water, cyberspace. See, land wars are more or less dead. Yes or no? In the World War II documentaries, we will see trenches and all those things. Those days are more or less gone. Air power is the more dominating power, and submarines is a new fashion. So land, air, water is conquered by America or some other country. The next one is cyberspace, including North Korea. Everybody is a participant. The only place left is space. So now, till now, government sectors used to fight. America sent the first man to moon. Immediately, Russia should send. India is sending someone to Mars. China will also send. So healthy competition for research and development is fine. But now private players are also participating. Space, right? Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, what is his name? Virgin Galactica. Okay. So, private competition is also increasing in the space. Now, weaponization of the space is also a threat. Outer Space Treaty nullifies weaponization of space. That means you should not place any nuclear weapon or any other kind of weapon in the space. Why space is very important? Almost everything that we see is connected using internet or technologies. If satellites are destroyed, yes or no, GPS and other activities will be heavily affected. Communication will be affected. Disaster management will be affected. In this way, almost all the security concerns of any nation is totally relied on outer space. So China is dominating in that space. China is dominating in that space, and there is no international boundary or a rule book for China to follow. Obviously, right? Tomorrow, if China sends a nuclear missile to, let's say, moon, hypothetically speaking, moon is ours. Okay, or this particular territory is ours. I have landed my rover on the moon. 2000 kilometers in that particular area is my research area. Who is going to stop China? Not nuclear weapon, chalo. At least research wise. Yes or no? There is no proper rule book. Or China can destroy your American satellites. It will say by accident also. Who is going to blame China? So there are a lot of disadvantages. So because China is proactively pursuing the space activities, automatically who will be following it up?
US.
USA. So who needs friends? USA. USA is coming to India. Same story. Indian Ocean, we replace it with space. New quad in space. Yes or no? Think about it. Because China is present in space, America is interested to create a rule-bound order, space order. Who will participate? Which countries are very active in space? Russia, Japan, China, France, India. Yes or no? Australia is not there. So who will be the new quad? Japan, European Union, USA, India, France. Who will be friends? Russia, China. Any difference? No. Here also there are friends. There also there are friends. What is the new problem? Rule bound order. Free, open, and rule bound space. Okay, so that is what he is trying to tell you in this article. So, it's a very simple, straightforward argument. You can read this conclusion, right? The growing strategic salience of space demands substantial national policies from India. Because India is a very active player in the space. So easy to remember summary, replace Indian Ocean with space, and we need rule bound order. And India has taken the right step by bringing this discussion into forefront. Okay, or else what will happen? Also, this paragraph he argues, right? So we have to observe satellites, we have to observe meteors. See, what is happening is the USA recently sent a collector to an asteroid. There is an asteroid. USA sent a rover to that particular asteroid to collect samples. It can be nuclear material, it can be minerals, it can be gold. So each asteroid is actually calculated in trillions of dollars. There is an asteroid which is costing around $760 trillion. $760 trillion. Just imagine the amount of resources that are available on that asteroid. So if one company or one country is able to access the minerals from that asteroid, that country is going to get super rich. Yes or no? Should it share the wealth with the rest of the world?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. So that is a problematic issue, right? So there are a lot of problems like this. I will share you that infographic. Each and every asteroid is having a lot of resources, right? So we have to explore those asteroids. America has already started field testing that in the name of science. Yes or no? I will send a rover to that particular asteroid. I will collect materials and I will bring it back to the Earth. So if I can do the same for diamonds, an asteroid is having diamonds in the size of footballs, right? That country will get rich or not? Probably tomorrow Elon Musk will go there and get 2 diamonds, richest man on Earth. Who is stopping him? No one. It is quite possible. Yes. So these are the 2 interesting articles from yesterday, and this is today's Hindu. Neat article. Is it important? How? First of all, we quality. Medical education is in concurrent list. Higher education is in union list. So yesterday we have seen a similar sounding article, right? Because of need, because of common exams, who are benefiting? People from privileged families are benefiting, no one else. People who are reading in vernacular languages, government schools, government colleges, they are not having a chance to fight, and that will create generational inequalities. Why generational inequalities? Somebody at the age of 22 or 20 wants to be a doctor. He cannot crack the exam because he cannot afford money, he cannot afford coaching, and he's not eligible to write that particular exam. The same 20-year-old, someone else wrote the exam, he's a doctor. Yes or no? His life is set, whereas he has to look for alternative employment. The same inequality can be continued in any other entrance test. Yes or no?
Inclusive growth.
Yes. So that generational inequalities will always be there, and societal inequalities will continue. Yeah. So what is the solution to improve the school education? Education system should be reformed from day one. Apart from that, what Mr. Faizan Mustafa is arguing, do you remember this name? On the other day essay class, I showed you, I told him he's an Nalsar professor, he also is having a YouTube channel. If you see the resources PDF of essay, you can find this name, Faizan Mustafa. He's also having a YouTube channel. So elitism in NEET or elitism in any entrance exam is a very common theme. So what should be done? He's basically bringing in constitution very heavily to argue that it is violating the fundamental rights. Supreme Court is upholding the NEET exam, but Supreme Court is not understanding the ground reality. Likes should be treated alike. Unlikes should be treated like. Right? See, people with a disadvantage, all of them are disadvantaged. All of them should be treated as one. People who do not have a disadvantage, they should be treated as one. Advantage plus disadvantage should never be treated as
One.
equals. That is Article 14, equality before law and
Equal protection before law.
equal protection before law. Like should be treated alike.
Alike.
The same applies to OBC, right? Other backward classes. According to government, everybody is disadvantaged socio-economically. That is why they are clubbed under OBC grouping. But within them, there are certain group of people who have advantage. That is why creamy layer concept is there. In the same way, if students reading in Tamil medium and somebody reading in CBSE, how can they be same? Yes or no? Either we should improve the quality of vernacular medium. You teach in Telugu, Tamil only or Telugu only, but the quality should be on par with CBSE standards. Then the student is ready. So this is not a one-day reform, right? I cannot go back in time machine and change the school system 20 years ago. Right now, I have to do something about it. And he is arguing, if you don't intervene, a lot of people are getting disadvantaged. Simple example, 2030 UPSC. Why do you think CSAT exam is a qualifier exam? Earlier, it was 200 marks. When CSAT was introduced in 2013, 2011 to 2013, CSAT, we wrote CSAT back then, right? It was not a qualifying exam, it was for 200. GS paper is 240, 280, right? Why? 160 or 170 you will get in CSAT paper. Out of 200, 170 is a common score. At least for IITs, 180 is a very common score. One of my friend got 194. Right? So if you get 100 in GS, 190 in CSAT, your score is 290. Cutoff is 200. So that used to happen. And then all these people came together, people from Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Bihar. I mean, you get the idea, right? So all of them came together and said CSAT is being discrimination against the non-engineering students. So CSAT should be restricted to qualifying exams. The beauty is, even after making it as a qualifying exam, the inherent disadvantages won't go away. Yes or no? My school teacher never taught me how to read English properly. Even if I'm from vernacular medium, I'm supposed to read English from 5th class, right? So those students reading in Bihar, Uttar Pradesh or Tamil Nadu, they can never read English properly and comprehension is still a nightmare for them. Yes or no? Math is still a nightmare for a lot of aspirants. Why? People fail in CSAT because they can't even get 67 marks. Even if you make it as a qualifying exam, the inherent structure inequality has never been removed. Yes or no? People say, why can't you practice? It's not one day event, right? His entire life, he was afraid of English. Yes, I hope you understand. So that is exactly what he is saying in this particular NEET exam case also. The structural inequalities are not going to states to take their own solutions. Yeah. And he brings in a different perspective. He brings a small perspective known as empathy, compassion, and humanity. A doctor should have compassion, empathy, and passion to serve the humanity, and that is nowhere tested in the NEET exam. You might be a brilliant person, you might top the NEET exam. That does not guarantee that you will become a brilliant doctor. And he blames that accordingly, hardly any doctor is willing to serve in the rural areas. Small flaw in that argument is doctors are actually willing to serve in the rural areas. There are good people in any field, right? The thing is basic amenities. He's a good doctor. He's married to a good, fellow doctor. Both the couple want to serve in rural area, but they also want their children to get some access, education. Yes or no? If you provide good amenities in rural area, many people will be relocating to the rural areas, right? Infrastructural gap is huge in rural areas. That is why doctors don't prefer to work in rural areas. Apart from that, I'm 100% sure there are many good doctors in this country who are very passionate in what they do, but they are restricted by their lack of infrastructure, lack of facilities. Clear? So the central government too should review a policy of single test so that diversity of the society is reflected in our medical institutions. Equity, inclusion, and access are realized.
A question came also, GS3. Intergenerational,
Intergenerational,
Inclusive.
intragenerational, inclusive growth and inequalities will keep on continuing. It's a very good article for understanding the policy. But how do we solve that problem? Should we not be moving forward as a nation? I cannot change the school system overnight, right? But at the same time, I cannot allow the states to have their own test series. Entrance test. There is a lot of corruption, lot of inequality, lot of problems. Right? If this is done for NEET, don't you think it will be demanded for other state, all India exams also?
Definitely.
Yes. The same logic applies to UPSC also. There is already PCS. Okay. But UPSC is not accessible to everyone.
That is true.
Even Hindi medium students, very few Hindi medium students actually clear UPSC. That is something to be understood. Okay. Tackling the Maoists, we have discussed this
Yes, sir.
almost verbatim. Everything has been covered. Any new points? Probably this, right? The union government and states should keep on learning from the success and expansion of welfare and right paradigms, the movements and failures and the spiral of violence. The more the development will reach the remotest corners of the society, the further the erosion of Naxalism. This we have dealt, winning hearts and minds. Yes. Okay. These two, this article we will discuss tomorrow a little bit more. This is self-explanatory.
Yes, sir. Yes, very easy.
But in pursuit of happiness, we will discuss pursuit of happiness and bureaucracy. Both these articles tomorrow we will discuss. Yes, because I want to introduce you to Indian Express also, or else we are missing a lot of good articles from Indian Express. Yes.
The NEET article, he said that NEET is not testing for compassion, empathy, or something like that.
How can
you?
you?
So for the qualified students, there will be academic curriculum regarding that. Right?
You are training them. Technically,
After completing that curriculum, they have to again give the test to qualify themselves as a doctor to practice in India. Even the
foreign students
they
also have to
give
give.
that
Definitely.
exam, right?
Hmm.
Then they won't test their empathy in that exam.
Again, it's like reading ethics for UPSC, right? I will write the best essay in the ethics paper. I am the most compassionate person. I am, honest to the core. After getting into UPSC, what will I do? I will look for the bride who will pay me the highest dowry.
But it may not be possible for them to
Test empathy and sympathy. It is subjective. 100%. I agree with you. See, there is no test in the entire world to tell you that you are a honest person or you are having empathy and compassion. He's trying to bring in an argument that we need diversity, or we need more people with passion. Somebody might be poor, he is very passionate to serve the nation, but there is no guarantee that let's say I'm poor, I want to serve the country. Once I see the riches that the field is offering, probably I might get greedy. I might start working in Apollo rather than in a government hospital. Till that point, I was a good person. But the moment I saw money, my ethics changed.
Then the board thinks that they only need students to inculcate with a good knowledge so that they can
Survey anyhow.
inculcate the ethics and everything to them via curriculum, right?
See, what is not broken is not fixed in this country. So the first and most important thing is we need someone who knows how to do an operation or how to do the medical knowledge. Then comes the ethics. If India is lucky, he will go to rural side. If not, he will go to some private hospital. So we are throwing a lottery, right? So for every 10 persons, probably 2 might be going to serve the people passionately, but the others might be going to take care of themselves. And the thing is, probably after making a huge amount of money, he might become a philanthropist. That is also serving the nation, right? So again, as you rightly point out, there is no way to test how somebody can be taught empathy, compassion, or how it can be tested also. Yes, it will change depending on the situations and circumstances. So that particular argument we can find flaw with. That is why I told you, right? Even the rural area, why people are not going is not because of lack of compassion. It is because of lack of infrastructure. See, compassion means it's not like Mother Teresa days, right? I have to give up everything and serve the country. I need to watch Netflix. I need to have some biryani, and at the same time, I need to serve the people. I need to take care of myself. That is a new kind of compassion for people. Very few people are there, like totally give up everything. But infrastructure and service conditions are very, very important. Nobody is that foolish to ignore their own child's future.
Salary also varies per rural and urban.
So I'll continue the discussion of happiness and bureaucracy tomorrow.